So, ladies and gentlemen, good news first. I'm the last speaker before the lunch break, so I'll make it very short. I represent the company Remondis. We're actually not consultants. We don't sell anything. We are actually one of the biggest waste and water management companies in the world. So all the previous speakers came to a point when somebody said, well, who's going to pay for it? Who will invest the money? Who will actually take that lately 150 million euros in Austria and actually invest the money in Ukraine? Who will do that? Where's the guy? Where's the company? It could be us, for example. So I want to thank the organizers for the opportunity to talk about a topic that is actually at the core of our business, the investment climate in the recycling sector in Ukraine. We work all over the world in 28 countries, and if my colleagues come here to visit us in Ukraine and they ask me, well, Felix, what do you think about the investment climate in Ukraine in the recycling sector? I tend to say, well, it's probably a bit like the weather today in Kiev, cold and rainy in the morning, and then it slowly gets better, and I hope it will get even better. So, what I want to talk about today is what is our perspective, what do we think has to be done that I could actually take a business plan and maybe it would be Russian technology or Ukrainian technology or Austrian technology and actually go to my headquarters and say, hey, come on, you need to invest in Ukraine. So what would be the steps on the short term, on the long term, from our point of view? First things first, well, it seems self-apparent to everybody that recycling is not an option, it's a must. So for any society, maybe Ukraine, Russia, or Europe, or Asia, that cares about future generation, has to think about recycling. That's actually at the core of our business as well. For those of you who don't know us, the Wildmann Group is one of the biggest German family-owned businesses. So we're not a publicly traded company, we're a family-owned business. These are old numbers, we have around 60,000 employees, and we started to work in Ukraine in 2007. We actually work we own the company Celtic, some of you might know them. In Kiev, we work in Zaporozhye, we work in Cherkasy, we work in Chemnost, we work in Metropole. And we've been around for 5 years now, and we actually plan to stay here. So we are, I think, one of the 3 international companies in our segment that is actually active in Ukraine. Of course, the group also has other parts. We run logistics, but everything we do is, or most of what we do is actually somehow related to recycling of any fraction, anything you can imagine, basically. Be it glass, paper, animal byproducts, hazardous waste. Somewhere in the, let's say, empire, as we call it, we recycle anything. We own around 500 recycling plants in the world, so our business is actually to make money with the process. So recycling is what we do, that's our business. We don't, as I said before, we don't live off making plans or building systems or consulting someone. That is what we need. And we do that in Ukraine. We actually run 2 small sorting lines, one in Zaporozhye and one in Kiev. But to be honest, 95% of what we do in Ukraine is logistics. That would probably be true for most other waste management companies in Ukraine as well. We're one of the biggest firms here. We service around 2.5 million people. The question is, why do we not invest more in recycling in Ukraine? The answer is simple. It's because of the bad investment climate. So why is the investment climate bad? To explain this, I always talk about Poland, because of course I talk about Germany or France or the States, but I somehow think that Poland is a bit closer to Ukraine economically. Obviously by now Poland is quite developed, but still, 15 years ago, the waste management industry in Poland looked as it did today. As it does today in Ukraine, I'm sorry, so it's quite comparable. If I go to Poland now, here's a question for you. What do you think? What's the price of Big Mac in Poland? Does anybody know? Everybody knows McDonald's, I think? If you buy a Big Mac, what would be the price in Russia? Yeah, that's Big Mac Index. Well, do you know what's the price of Big Mac in Ukraine? Here. I tell you, you shouldn't eat Big Macs all the time anyway, so you probably don't know, it's 19,50, which is about €2, right? In Russia, the same Big Mac costs about €2.10. So it's almost the same. It's 10% more expensive. Now the question is, if I pick up a cubic meter of residual waste, 1.1, what do I get for that in years here? Some of you might know that I would usually be paid from a company around €4 per cubic meter. And we remember, it's €4 for the cubic meter and it's €2 for the Big Mac in Ukraine. In Poland, you get around €15 for the cubic meter, and the Big Mac also costs €2. So the question now is, where would I build a recycling plant? Where I get €15 and pay €2 for the Big Mac, or will I get €4 and I also pay €2 for the Big Mac? So that is, for me, the core of the recycling issue in Ukraine, that recycling everywhere in the world is basically financed by fees and charges, actually money you get from the client, to 60%, and only 40% is the money you get out of the secondary raw materials. So often if you hear consultants telling you, well, you can finance your sorting line by the financial compensation you get from the secondary raw material, it doesn't really work. It works the other way around. If you don't have to bring the residual waste to the landfill, because the landfill would cost, let's say, like in Poland, €40, then it actually makes sense to recycle, because you save the €40. And in Ukraine, at the moment, we have a situation where we're not developing in that direction. If I look, for example, at Poland, where we see that the aim of the European Union that 50% of all paper and glass should be recycled. I think in Ukraine, I know the official statistics, but I don't show statistics because, as the English say, I only trust in statistics that I fake myself. So what I think in Ukraine, from my experience, and I know most cities in the country, probably 5, maybe 10% of the plastic is recycled. So we're still far, far away from the goal to actually have a recycling rate, let's say 40, 50%. And once we get there, obviously there will be other solutions, recycling, and then the rest is incinerated, and whatever, there's all kinds of things you can do. But what you need to do is you need to find people that actually have the confidence to invest in that sector. And how do we get there? I put down a few short-term things. I mean, if you would be the Ukrainian parliament, you could probably decide to do this right now. First point for me is reliability. Our biggest problem at the moment is we just don't get paid sometimes. So we are owed, for example, 2 million hryvnia by the administration at the moment, and I just don't get paid. So if I go and I suggest an investment project, hey, let's invest some money in Ukraine, well, my manager would obviously tell me, hey, no problem, you just take the money you are owed. Once you get paid, you invest the money. So I can guarantee you, if I get the 2 million hryvnia back from the administration, I go and open up a private segment tomorrow, no problem. The thing is, if you don't pay waste management companies, and I don't only mean us, also our colleagues and the small Ukrainian companies, then nobody's going to ever invest in recycling. Nobody. Because one of the things with recycling is it's a long-term investment. It's not a car, it's not a container, you can't take it away, you can't sell it. Well, you can sell it, but it's difficult. So there needs to be reliability in the system. Second point, I only got 3 points on the way, transparency. This is great, as our Austrian colleague talked about the extended producer responsibility. In Ukraine, there's this legal Act 915. All kinds of producers and importers pay money when they import something to the country. I don't know where that money goes. I mean, I don't get it. We're the biggest waste management company in the country. And if I ask my colleagues from Viola and Apple and the local players, we don't get that money. So it's great that we have a system, but it should actually get to the people that are in recycling. I mean, I don't want to talk about where the money goes now because it's not a nice thing to talk about, but it won't work like this, obviously. And then, last point is the question of what people take. So, if you recycle, we have to understand that companies that really recycle have to invest and then into your costs, so everybody has to do it. You can't have companies that don't recycle and others do recycle because then it will be a disadvantage for us. We need a level playing field. This is also true. I mean, what I'm saying is not only true for international investors. The same is true for national investors. So once we did that, this is what has to be done in the long term from that point of view. Because this is kind of things that take time to adapt. The market players and the consumers and the population is like that. First point, obviously, is you can't have landfills that are cheap. In Kiev, we pay per square meter around €2, for example. That's not enough. It's not enough because, I mean, we don't own the landfill, so I'm not interested in actually having high fees for landfills. But the thing is, if I can go and dump residual waste or whatever kind of waste on a landfill for €2, I don't have any incentive to recycle because it's so cheap, just throw it away, and that's what everybody else does. So the first step should be you should increase tariffs for landfills actually. And for €2, I mean, I don't know who's looking to landfill here. Any of you in Ukraine? Have you ever been to landfill, anybody? Yeah? Okay, I see. I mean, it's not what it should look like. It's absolutely crazy. It's absolutely crazy, and it's logically bomb. And you can't run a landfill for €2 per square meter. It's not possible technologically. Even if you use, I mean, what I always say is, okay, the argumentation is labor cost is cheap in Ukraine, but technology, fuel, waste trucks, that costs the same everywhere in the world, basically. So the tariffs need to go up, and also they need to go up for transport, of course. But the tariffs we have at the moment, they are logistic tariffs. You can more or less survive if you pay taxes. You have a little bit of profit left at the end of the year. It's not much, but you can actually be in the logistics sector. So you can go and transport the residual waste from one place to another. But there's no incentive there for recycling, and there's no margin there for investment. And again, the last point is exclusion of market participants that do not participate. So what we get a lot is that the rules are the same for everybody, but some companies have different rules. And that's the worst thing that can ever happen. Because, I mean, why would an international investor or national investor get into a business where next year a company can do the same thing in the leaders but has less costs? That's not interesting. So, and that happened in the industry. The problem also is that sometimes in various cities in Ukraine, people are not aware of the fact that once the reputation is ruined, it gets much more difficult to attract investors again. So, let me just shortly sum up. The main point for me is that the recycling industry will be attractive again for investors when me or my colleagues can actually go home to Europe or where we have our headquarters with the States and say that we see a long-term perspective. Because we talk about recycling and the recycling industry, we talk about long-term investments. So 10 years would be the minimum investment period I would look for if I look for investment. So the task really is here not to talk about, from my point of view, to talk about systems or technology. The task is here for Ukraine and for the Ukrainian administration and the civil society to inspire the confidence on the long term. So I invite you for discussion later on. We have to discuss any project proposals on this way. And I'm waiting as short as possible because I know you are hungry. If you have any questions, please, thank you for your attention. And that will be it for now.
У кого возникли вопросы?
Если говорить по-русски, тоже что-то, может быть, будет легче. Даже времени немножко рабочих, я не учитель, не работаю.
Планируется какая-то экспансия дальнейшая в Украине?
Компания вернулись. Ну, мы сейчас рассматриваем проекты, но у нас, в принципе, сейчас настроение не очень хорошее. А когда настроение не очень хорошее, наши финансисты напрягаются и не дают нам денег еще развиваться. То есть не остаемся в Украине, будем рассматривать дальнейшие проекты, но сказать, что завтра мы куда-то собираемся и что-то развивать будем, не могу сегодня.
Нескромный вопрос. Являетесь ли вы прибыльной организацией для вашей группы Украины? Это profitable project? Или...
Там, где уходит мой начальник, там пьет кофе, вы ловите, схватите. То есть, пока с оплаты платим, живем, улыбаемся периодически, но сказать, что группа Вильгельма находится здесь, чтобы деньги зарабатывать, нет, конечно. Но тут мы даже имеем в виду, что группа оборот 8 миллиардов евро, да. То есть, я не буду называть сейчас наш оборот в Украине, он, по сравнению не очень маленький. Все равно мы находимся здесь именно из стратегических целей. То есть, мы не находимся в Украине или случайно, или из того, что мы там ожидаем завтра какие-то прибыли. Это именно хозяин нашего бизнеса, то есть семья, которая ведет этот бизнес, надеется на Украину. То есть, я говорил о Польше, да, в Польше мы когда-то начали, у нас был оборот небольшой, пару миллионов евро, а сейчас мы номер один в Польше. То есть, был такой путь, да, в многих странах. И мы и наши коллеги, мы пока как-то потеряли надежду, да, можно вот так сказать.
Еще есть вопрос к залу? У меня есть вопрос, небольшой к вам провокационный. Я знаю, что компания ремонтируется за сколько лет на украинском рынке? Лет 5, да, по-моему?
2007 начали, да.
Да, где-то 6 год. За это время вы сколько построили сортировочных линий? По-моему, одну, да?
Два.
Две, да? Объем переработки какой?
Если честно, я не знаю. То есть,
ну,
я знаю,
15 тысяч тонн каждый, мне кажется, очень
я знаю
маленький.
другой, но вы знаете, это объем, это такой вопрос техничный, да, какой объем, большой объем это хорошо. Проблема в том, что в Украине, чем меньше ты перерабатываешь, чем меньше денег потратишь. То есть строить эти заводы, это в принципе не проблема, ни технически, ни финансово, но это же должно быть прибыльно. То есть одну тонну туда, да, должен куда-то 1 копейку. А если та же тонну, значит минус 5 копеек, тогда в чем смысл вообще строить?
Сколько, на ваш взгляд, должен быть стоить процесс переработки твердой бытовых? То есть с населения сколько нужно собирать денег? Не так сейчас там, по-моему, от 5 до 12 да, гривен в год.
В разных местах, да. Ну, это зависит от много факторов. Логистика, утилизация и так далее, и так далее. То есть, допустим, в Германии моя семья, мы тратим 100 евро в год. Да. Это смешная сумма для Украины, у кого есть такие деньги здесь. Да. То есть, в любом случае, тарифы низкие, но сказать, что их надо завтра вот, повесить 5 раз, мы это тоже не скажем. Но дальше будет такой тариф, который посылает компанию жить, работать и вкладывать деньги.
Еще у меня короткий вопрос. В чем разные правила игры для разных участников рынка? Для меня это непонятно.
Ну, я объясню, да. То есть, если мы, да, западные компании живем, платим налоги, разные очень налоги. Есть у нас лицензии и так далее, и так далее. Есть компания, да, человек, который имеет мусоровоз. Он может быть ЧП, не ЧП, я не знаю. Ну, как это может быть, что я плачу налоги, а он не платит? Это для меня значит, что что-то не так.
А что, есть такие, что не платят?
Ну, мне говорили, что есть, конечно, да.
Да. Ну, хорошо, спасибо. Есть еще вопросы? Если нет вопросов, мы сэкономим время на еще одного докладчика, который у нас нежданно организовался.